Have you ever felt like people around you are pulling away, but you can't quite figure out why? Maybe your children's visits have become shorter, your friends call less often, or conversations feel strained in ways they never did before. If you're over 80 and sensing this shift, you're not alone, and more importantly, you're not imagining it. Today, we're going to talk about something difficult but necessary. The 7 hidden reasons why older adults sometimes find themselves quietly pushed to the margins of their own families and social circles. This isn't about blame or shame. It's about awareness and empowerment. Because here's the truth. Many of these patterns develop so gradually that we don't even notice them happening. We don't wake up one morning deciding to push people away. Instead, small habits accumulate over years. And before we know it, the people we love most are keeping their distance. But the beautiful part is that once you understand what's happening, you have the power to change it. Small adjustments in how you interact with others can transform your relationships and bring back the warmth and connection you've been missing. So let's be honest with each other today. Let's look at these 7 reasons with clear eyes and open hearts. Because you deserve to have fulfilling relationships in these precious years, and the people who love you deserve to enjoy your company without feeling drained or dismissed. Understanding these patterns is the first step toward reconnecting with the people who matter most. The first reason that can create distance is constant complaining. Now, I know this might sting a bit, but stay with me. When you've lived 8 or 9 decades, you've accumulated real hardships. You've experienced pain, loss, physical decline, and watched the world change in ways that sometimes feel unsettling or wrong. Those complaints aren't coming from nowhere. They're rooted in genuine frustration, discomfort, and sometimes loneliness. But here's what happens from the other person's perspective. When someone visits you and the conversation immediately turns to what's wrong, what hurts, what's bothering you, or what's going wrong in the world, it creates an emotional weight. If every phone call starts with complaints about your aches and pains, if every visit includes criticism about how things used to be better, if you're constantly pointing out what's wrong with modern life or what people around you are doing incorrectly, those interactions start to feel draining rather than enriching. Let me tell you about Harold, an 82-year-old man who couldn't understand why his daughter's visits kept getting shorter. Harold had legitimate complaints. His arthritis was painful. He worried about crime in his neighborhood. He was frustrated by technology he didn't understand, but every single conversation revolved around these grievances. His daughter would arrive hoping to share good news about her children or just enjoy a pleasant afternoon. But within minutes, Harold would launch into what was bothering him. Over time, those visits went from 2 hours to 1 hour to 30 minutes. And Harold felt increasingly lonely without understanding his own role in the pattern. The solution isn't to pretend everything is perfect or to suppress genuine struggles. It's about balance. But also make space for warmth, humor, gratitude, and curiosity about others. Ask questions. Show interest in good things happening around you. When someone shares something positive, let yourself be genuinely happy for them, instead of immediately countering with something negative. This balance makes your interactions uplifting rather than depleting, and it draws people closer rather than pushing them away. The second reason people may pull back is refusing to listen or change your mind. After 80 years of life experience, you've learned an enormous amount. You've developed strong opinions based on decades of observation and lived experience. That wisdom is valuable and real. But here's the trap. When that experience hardens into absolute certainty that you're always right and everyone else is wrong, it shuts down genuine connection. Think about how it feels to share an idea with someone only to have them immediately dismiss it without consideration. Think about trying to have a conversation with someone who constantly interrupts with phrases like, "That's not how we did it," or "In my day, we knew better than that," or "You'll understand when you're older." These responses, however well-intentioned, send a clear message. Your thoughts don't matter, your experiences aren't valid, and I'm not really interested in what you have to say. Lorraine, an 81-year-old grandmother, loved her family deeply but couldn't understand why her grandchildren seemed increasingly distant. Every time they tried to talk with her about their lives, their careers, their challenges, Lorraine would jump in with advice based on her own experience. She'd tell them what they should do, how they should handle things, what the right answer was, all before really listening to what they were saying. Her grandchildren eventually stopped sharing anything meaningful because they knew the response would be immediate judgment or unsolicited advice, rather than genuine listening and support. The insight here is powerful. One of the deepest human needs is to be heard and understood. When you truly listen to someone, when you show genuine curiosity about their perspective, even if it differs from yours, when you ask questions instead of immediately offering solutions, you fulfill that fundamental need. You don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to abandon your own values or opinions. But showing openness, demonstrating that you're willing to consider other viewpoints, and resisting the urge to always be the expert, creates space for real dialogue and genuine connection. Flexibility and openness are themselves forms of wisdom, perhaps the highest forms. The third reason that can create distance is dwelling excessively on the past while rejecting the present. Memories are precious. Your history matters. The experiences that shaped you, the era you grew up in, the challenges you overcame, all of these deserve to be honored and remembered. Sharing stories from your past can be a beautiful way to connect with younger generations and pass down family history. But there's a critical difference between sharing memories and living entirely in the past. When every conversation becomes a comparison between how things used to be and how terrible they are now, when you constantly criticize modern life without acknowledging anything positive about the present, when you dismiss current music, technology, customs, and values as inherently inferior to your era, you create a wall between yourself and the people living in today's world. Frank, an 84-year-old Navy veteran, loved sharing stories from his service and from his youth. Those stories were genuinely interesting and valuable, but Frank accompanied every story with criticism of the present. Young people today are soft. Technology is ruining everything. Modern music is just noise. Nobody has manners anymore. His grandchildren initially enjoyed his stories, but eventually started avoiding family gatherings because they felt constantly judged and criticized. Every interaction became a reminder that Frank saw their entire world, and by extension them, as disappointing and inferior. The conclusion here is nuanced but important. Pride in your history is valuable and worth maintaining. Your experiences shaped you, and that matters. But the most meaningful connections happen when you can share your past in ways that invite curiosity and build bridges to the present rather than creating barriers. You can honor where you've been while also showing genuine interest in where the world is now. You can share wisdom from your experience while acknowledging that younger generations face challenges you never encountered. This balanced approach invites people in rather than pushing them away. The fourth reason is taking over conversations and making everything about yourself. This pattern often develops from understandable places. Maybe you spent much of your life feeling overlooked or unheard. Maybe you worry that if you don't speak up, no one will care about your experiences. Maybe you've accumulated so many stories and insights that you're eager to share them. These motivations are human and relatable. But here's what happens when conversations consistently become one-sided. When someone tries to share something about their life and you immediately redirect to your own story. When you dominate every discussion with your opinions, experiences, and concerns without pausing to invite others' perspectives. When you interrupt or talk over people because you're so focused on what you want to say next, the other person starts to feel invisible, sidelined, and ultimately reluctant to engage at all. Evelyn, an 83-year-old woman with a fascinating life history, couldn't understand why family members stopped sharing personal news with her. The problem was that whenever someone started to tell her something, Evelyn would immediately connect it to her own experience and launch into a lengthy story of her own. If her son mentioned work stress, Evelyn would interrupt with a 15-minute monologue about her own career challenges. If her granddaughter mentioned a relationship issue, Evelyn would immediately take over with her own romantic history. Eventually, family members stopped trying to share anything because they knew the conversation would immediately become about Evelyn rather than about them. The advice here is transformative. Balance is everything in conversation. Yes, share your stories and experiences. Yes, offer your perspective, but also actively invite others to speak. Ask questions and then truly listen to the answers. Show genuine interest in their lives, their challenges, their joys. Let there be pauses and space for others to contribute. When someone shares something with you, resist the urge to immediately respond with your own story. Instead, ask follow-up questions. Show curiosity. Demonstrate that you see them as fully as you want to be seen. This creates genuine dialogue rather than monologue, and it builds warmer, more authentic relationships. The fifth reason involves insisting on outdated social norms or beliefs. This is perhaps the most sensitive area we'll discuss, but it's crucial. Your values were shaped by the time and place you grew up in. The beliefs you hold about gender roles, relationships, work, family structure, politics, and religion made sense in the context of your life. Those beliefs aren't arbitrary. They're rooted in your experience and the world you knew. But here's the reality. The world has changed dramatically. Younger generations live in a fundamentally different social landscape, with different norms, different possibilities, and different challenges. When you rigidly insist that your values are the only correct ones, when you judge or criticize family members whose lives don't conform to your expectations, when you express disapproval of their choices, relationships, careers, or identities, you create painful distance. Gloria, an 80-year-old woman who loved her family deeply, struggled when her granddaughter came out as gay. Gloria's religious upbringing taught her that this was wrong. She didn't mean to hurt anyone. She thought she was protecting her granddaughter's soul. But her inability to accept her granddaughter's identity, her constant subtle and not so subtle expressions of disapproval, created a rift in the family that hurt everyone involved. Gloria's granddaughter stopped visiting. Other family members felt torn between supporting the granddaughter and maintaining peace with Gloria. What began as an attempt to uphold values ended up destroying connection. The key message isn't that you must abandon your deeply held beliefs, it's that showing compassion, flexibility, and an open heart matters more than being right. You can hold your values while also acknowledging that others have the right to live differently. You can express concern without expressing judgment. You can offer your perspective without demanding that others conform to it. Love and acceptance create bridges. Rigid insistence on conformity builds walls. In the end, connection with the people you love matters more than winning arguments about values. The sixth reason is criticizing the younger generation's choices. This often comes from a place of love. You've lived long enough to see patterns, to understand consequences, to recognize mistakes before they happen. When you see younger family members making choices you believe are wrong, whether about careers, money, parenting, relationships, or lifestyle, you want to protect them from pain you've witnessed or experienced yourself. But here's what constant criticism accomplishes. It builds resentment and shuts down communication. When every conversation includes judgment about someone's job not being stable enough, their parenting being too lenient, their spending being too frivolous, their life choices being misguided, that person stops sharing their life with you. They don't want to hear one more time that they're doing it wrong. They start to associate you with disappointment rather than support. Arthur, an 85-year-old retired accountant, genuinely wanted the best for his grandson. But Arthur openly disapproved of his grandson's choice to work as a freelance graphic designer instead of pursuing a traditional career with benefits and security. Every family gathering included questions about when the grandson would get a real job, comments about the instability of freelancing, and warnings about financial insecurity. The grandson, who was actually quite successful and happy, eventually stopped attending family events and stopped sharing his accomplishments or struggles because he knew Arthur would respond with criticism rather than celebration or support. The insight here is profound. Criticism, even well-intentioned criticism, rarely inspires positive change. What it does inspire is distance and defensiveness. If you want to maintain close relationships with younger family members, try replacing criticism with curiosity and encouragement. Ask questions about their choices instead of immediately judging them. Look for what's working rather than fixating on what you think is wrong. Offer support rather than unsolicited advice. Share your wisdom gently when asked rather than forcing it into every conversation. Remember that people learn from their own experiences, just as you did, and that your role can be supportive companion rather than constant critic. The seventh and final reason is neglecting personal care and social etiquette. This is a difficult topic because it often intersects with genuine health challenges, depression, grief, or the simple exhaustion that can come with aging. But it's too important to ignore because it significantly affects how others experience being around you. As we age, certain aspects of personal care can become more difficult. Showering might be challenging if balance is an issue. Laundry might be overwhelming if you live alone. Dental care might slip if appointments are hard to manage. Social niceties, like saying please and thank you, might fade if you're isolated and out of practice. These changes often happen gradually and without conscious intent. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When personal hygiene declines, when clothing is frequently stained or unwashed, when body odor or bad breath becomes noticeable, when homes become cluttered or unclean, or when basic social courtesies disappear, people become uncomfortable. They may not say anything directly because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but they start to limit their visits. They make excuses. They suggest meeting in public places rather than coming to your home. The distance grows without direct conversation about what's causing it. Ruth, an 82-year-old widow, lost interest in personal care after her husband died. Showering felt exhausting. Getting dressed felt pointless. Cleaning the house felt overwhelming. She didn't notice that her appearance had changed or that her home had become cluttered and unwelcoming. But her children noticed. Their visits became shorter and less frequent. They felt sad and uncertain about how to address what they were seeing without being cruel. Ruth sensed the distance but didn't understand its cause, which made her loneliness deepen. The important point here isn't about vanity or superficial appearances. It's about signaling to others that you respect yourself and respect them. Maintaining basic hygiene, wearing clean clothes, keeping your living space reasonably tidy, and continuing to use social courtesies like please, thank you, and excuse me. These things communicate that you're still engaged with the world and with other people. They make others feel comfortable and welcome in your presence. They sustain the social bonds that keep loneliness at bay. If personal care has become difficult, please don't be ashamed to ask for help. Family members, friends, home health aides, or community services can assist with tasks that have become overwhelming. Addressing these challenges isn't about meeting arbitrary standards, it's about maintaining your dignity and your connections with others. So here we are, having looked honestly at 7 reasons why older adults sometimes find themselves quietly disliked or avoided: constant complaining, refusing to listen or change your mind, dwelling on the past while rejecting the present, dominating conversations, insisting on outdated norms, criticizing younger generations, neglecting personal care. None of these patterns develop overnight, and none of them mean you're a bad person. They're human tendencies that can affect anyone at any age, but they become more visible and more consequential as we get older and our social circles naturally shrink. The beautiful truth is that awareness creates possibility. Now that you understand these patterns, you have the power to change them. You don't need to transform everything at once. Small adjustments make enormous differences. Listening a bit more before offering advice. Sharing one positive observation for every complaint. Asking one genuine question about someone else's life before launching into your own story. Showing curiosity about the present alongside your memories of the past. Accepting people's choices even when you disagree. Maintaining your personal care as an act of self-respect. These small changes, practiced consistently, can transform your relationships. Remember, no one navigates these later years perfectly. We all have blind spots. We all have habits that push others away sometimes. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness, compassion for yourself and others, and willingness to keep growing and adapting even in your 80s and beyond. The wisdom you've accumulated over a lifetime shines brightest when it's shared with humility, openness, and genuine care for others' experiences and perspectives. Your relationships matter. The connections you have with family, friends, and community enrich your life and theirs. You have so much to offer: decades of experience, hard-won wisdom, stories that deserve to be told, love that deserves to be shared. Don't let unconscious patterns rob you of those connections. With small changes and consistent effort, you can rebuild bonds that have weakened and prevent new distance from forming. Here's what I want you to do. Take some quiet time today to reflect honestly on these 7 reasons. Which one resonated most with you? Where do you see yourself in these patterns? Don't approach this reflection with shame or self-criticism. Approach it with curiosity and compassion, the same way you'd want others to approach their own growth. Then choose just one small change to practice this week. Maybe it's asking one question and truly listening to the answer. Maybe it's sharing one memory without criticizing the present. Maybe it's expressing gratitude instead of complaining. Start small, but start today. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 7 reasons surprised you most? Have you noticed any of these patterns in your own life or in older adults you know? What small changes have made a difference in your relationships? Your experiences and insights could help someone else who's struggling with these same challenges. And please subscribe to our channel for more honest, helpful content about navigating aging with grace, dignity, and strong relationships. We're here to support you through these years with practical wisdom and genuine care. Remember, connection, love, and respect are possible at any age. Your relationships can be as rich and fulfilling in your 80s as they were in your younger years. It simply requires awareness, willingness to adapt, and the courage to keep showing up with an open heart. You've lived through so much already. You've overcome challenges most people can't imagine. This is just one more opportunity to grow, to connect, and to share the best of who you are with the people who matter most. You've got this, and we're here with you every step of the way.